Hello, everyone. Glad y'all could make it. Today we're going to be asking some of the hard-hitting questions. I want to start off with this. Which is more deadly? We have being attacked by a shark or having a vending machine fall on you. Take a sec, think about it. Next question. Which is more deadly? Falling out of bed or getting struck by lightning? Now, this may seem like a weird transition, but we'll get back to these. Today we're talking about decision making and availability heuristic. And with this, what we need to keep in mind is just how often we make decisions. We make 35,000 choices every single day. And that can range from things like how to drive, all those little details that go into driving, what to even eat, how we're going to interact with people, who to text, who to not text. We make a ton of decisions. And we have to ask ourselves, what is influencing our decision making? And how do we go about making those decisions? So we have kind of two ways to make decisions. In Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, he breaks this down into a System 1 and System 2 concept. So System 1 is kind of fast, unconscious, automatic, just everyday decisions, but it is error prone. Whereas System 2 is more slow, effortful, it's conscious, for more complex decisions, and it's going to be more reliable. So other words we can kind of assign on top of these concepts of System 1 and System 2 are heuristics. Heuristics we can think about as basically just kind of shortcuts or a way of guessing at a particular outcome so that we can better make those decisions. Whereas System 2 is more algorithmic in terms of its decision making. It's taking into account the details and making calculations based on that. So one particular heuristic or shortcut for decision making is the availability heuristic. Now, in Thinking Fast and Slow by Kahneman, they define this as the process of judging frequency by the ease with which instances come to mind. And so that is to say, when we think about things, the likelihood of something happening or the probability with which we predict it's going to happen is higher if we can easily remember examples of it happening. And so this is the paper in which this concept was first explored. It was by Kahneman and Tversky all the way back in 1973. And they were looking at how people make judgments and decisions based on that information that's readily available for recall. So let's get back to exploring these. I think it's safe to say that, unless you perceived the trick, that it just seems more likely that a shark attack would happen because we hear about shark attacks more. But in fact, you're twice as likely to die from a vending machine falling on you, which is a way more lame way to go. That would just be really sad. But in fact, it's more dangerous. But the media is not going to report on every vending machine falling on a person. Same thing here. Which is more deadly, getting struck by lightning or falling out of bed? Now, this one's an interesting one because I think we hear about getting struck by lightning, but we also have a song about monkeys falling off their bed, hitting their head. I don't believe any of them died, but falling out of your bed is more deadly. It's kind of 450 people each year versus only 20 people die by lightning strikes. So it's significantly more deadly. And so you have to ask, did you get these right? What influenced your decision in terms of choosing which one you thought was more deadly? And I think if you used availability heuristics, we see that availability can bias us. It can introduce that error that we talked about in System 1. And we can just think about this as we said that heuristics are a kind of guessing, using that technique to make decisions. And when we guess at things, are we always going to be correct? I think it's very clear, at least in my case, that that's not going to be true. And so we see that heuristics can mislead us sometimes, whereas algorithms would not. And so one example of this is from a paper by Ross and Sickley. And then in this paper, I'll demonstrate what it was doing. I want y'all to think about all the chores you have to do at school, or not at school, at home. Hopefully you don't have to do chores at school, unless your teachers are mean. All the chores you have to do at school, or at home, and think about what percentage of the chores that happen in the household are from you doing them. Now, the chances are if we polled everybody else in your family and asked them the same thing, those percentages would add up to over 100%. Now, is it possible for y'all to do more than 100% of the chores that need to be done? I don't think so. And what Ross and Sickley found is that when they asked spouses, so people that were married, about the percentage of the chores that they did in the household, they also found that it added up to over 100% between the two of them. And what this means is that people are overestimating their contribution to the workload. And the reason for that is because the only kind of instances of chores were the ones that they did, and those were the ones that were easily recalled. They didn't recall their spouse taking out the trash or their spouse doing the dishes. They only recalled when they had to walk the dog, or when they had to vacuum, or when they had to dust. And so we see what's available in our minds can bias us. And ultimately what that means in terms of this case was that the more biased those couples were, the lower the satisfaction in their marriage was. And so we see a very clear example of how the availability bias can cause tension within relationships, and also just mislead us in terms of some of the important decision making that we need to do. And so if it's prone to error, why do we even use heuristics? And I think one of the easiest reasons to think about that is that heuristics are easy and algorithms are hard. Algorithms take a lot of details, a lot of information that sometimes you don't have, and heuristics are an efficient way. We said we make a ton of decisions, and to make all those decisions in a day, we wouldn't be able to just sit down and calculate the whole time. And so we still need to use heuristics, but we need to keep in mind kind of two different things, especially when thinking about availability heuristics, that can help us avoid the bias in our decision making. And that's this difference between frequency and fluency, kind of how many instances can we recall and how easily we can recall them. And so we see this weird thing where if people can recall more instances, but it's harder to do it, they kind of don't estimate a higher probability. So it's kind of keeping an understanding about where this bias can creep in and addressing it that way. That's kind of the project. I wanted to make you all aware of biases as you start getting older, making decisions, and hopefully this can help you in life. Thank you all.